Welcome, everybody, to another edition of No Particular Reason with a beautiful guest that I'm super excited to be talking with yet again, Sherri Leopold. But for those of you who are just catching us, we're late today because, in typical Kerri fashion, I gotta make a grand entrance of hysterics and technological hiccups. So thank you for giving us grace. As you may know, my name's Kerri Lewis. I am a coach helping you really step into showing up authentically, much like I do. And we have Yankov, who's a hypnotist. He and I have this show. We're passionate about really encouraging and supporting people to step outside of the box that we've all kind of been conditioned in and start to experience life really fully expressed and on their own terms. And of course, that is why we brought good old Sherri Leopold here, who truly encompasses authenticity, empowerment, who's really focused on helping women in particular to be their best. What is it? Their unique, like perfect, only themselves person. So thank you for being here, Sherri, and thank you for the
Thank
grace
you.
as I continue to entertain myself with the hiccups I have in life.
Thank you so much, Kerri. It's an honor to be here with you both incredible people. Unrepeatable miracles is
See,
what I would call you both.
I couldn't pull it, but yes, and you're wearing my favorite color lipstick, which is red, so it's even better. So, how are you guys?
Amazing.
I love it.
Exceptional.
We're wonderful. I'm so excited because we're having our first guest today, and that's exciting. Um, uh, the show it's taking off. It's very good, and I love it. It's Friday also, which is another thing. And with that, I want to remind our viewers that they can see us every Friday, 1 Central to Eastern and 11 Pacific. So, yep.
Yay! So,
Sherry, go ahead.
yes.
Take it away. Just start talking about something for
Well,
no
do you have
particular
a
reason.
topic that you like has been percolating in your brain this week?
Oh gosh, I didn't know I should bring a topic, but
No, 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 no.
there, there
I always have topics,
there's
but I
always a topic, right?
yeah.
Actually, kind of one of the ones that's been on my mind lately because I did another chat with somebody about it, which it was a really interesting discussion. So I would love to hear both of your thoughts on this as well. Is that when somebody asks you a question and perhaps there is a question behind the question that they just either are not brave enough to ask or they actually want to know something else, but they don't feel comfortable asking the actual question. So the question behind the question, that's one that's just, it's been still brewing in my mind. Like when, and it came about from being asked, somebody said to me, you know, what are you doing now? Like that, sort of with a little bit of a sarcastic bent. I'm a serial entrepreneur, right? And I'm like, I answered, I said, anything I want, from wherever I want, with whoever I want, when I want. What's your point? It's like, what are you asking me? Like the thing was, I felt like they were asking me, why are you not punching a clock and going and working 9 to 5 and doing the same thing so I know what to expect from you? That
Yeah.
was what it felt like the actual question was, not what they didn't really want to know. They just, it was like they couldn't keep up. But I don't feel a need to keep up with anybody. So, but
Yeah.
there was definitely a question behind the question, and it's a interesting topic, and I think we get this all the time. People ask, like, how much money can you make doing that? Well, that's not actually the question either. It's, do I have the skill set to actually make money at it? Like, there's just always these things that lurk in the background. So I'm just wondering if there's ones that have come up for you all that you're like, oh, I don't really think that's what they're asking.
You want to take this one first, Yanko? Because you know me, I can talk. So I'm gonna just hand that plate to you.
Yeah, I was gonna go first. Sometimes they do, cause just that's how I am. Like I'm very unpredictable. Maybe I don't know. And a lot of times people are like, "Hey, so what are you up to?" Like, cause I have different interests. I'm not only doing what I'm doing in life. I'm always doing ad things. Like for example, one of my many hobbies it's amateur radio stuff. Like I experiment with frequencies and radios, and it's not something that everybody does every day or anything. So that's not an unusual question for me. And usually when they ask me that, I just go with whatever I feel like. It's it doesn't really bother me. Because some people do that, like you described it. They're like, "So what do you do nowadays?" Or like trying to see if there's something going on. Or, but I don't think it's that often with me nowadays. Mostly because whoever knows me, they know that I'm unpredictable. Like I can shock him with pretty much anything.
Yeah. I, well, one, I got to tell you, Sherry, this is why I love you so much, right? Like, honestly, the answer that you gave to that person was so fitting and so powerfully profound because it it's not only showcasing how empowered you are within your own space and framework, but it's actually giving people permission to start to get curious about that. And then naturally, because we have been conditioned to fit in a nice little pretty box where everybody's drinking themselves and popping pills away to try to fit in that box, um, there's going to be resistance to that because it's just so outside of how we've been taught to live. And so, what you said was just so beautiful, and it's funny you brought it up because my daughter is doing a project and she was asked a question. She's reading To Kill a Mockingbird, and Atticus was talking to his daughter about how a woman said something unkind about Atticus, and that it didn't really matter to him because it spoke about where that person was rather than who he was as a person. And then she had to share an example of in her own life, and her being her was like, no way, I'm going to share my mom's example. And I thought about it. My whole life, I've been literally labeled by my family as crazy, like seriously called the crazy twin. And for years, that really bothered me, especially when at 12 they tried to diagnose me with all these things. Like that just fed into this ideology that there was something wrong with me. But then, as I really started to step into my own power, I'm like, hell yeah, I can totally see where you would think I'm crazy because I'm not subjecting myself to the conditions and the ideology and the belief systems that all of us have been brought up with. And so I'm like, okay, I'm cool being crazy. And so I think that for me, I don't get asked the question a lot because people have already just chalked me up to being crazy. And I'm like, I'm good with it. I'm totally fine being weird. And then the other thing that something you said, Sherry, that I want to touch upon with our audience and is that I learned a long time ago my the work that I do, and I think both of you can agree, and please, obviously interject if I'm projecting, but it's not about I'm not about how many dollars I acquire. I'm about showing up in joy and peace. And when people say to me, well, how much money are you making? I say to them, truthfully, it's about how joyful I am able to exist in each experience because money comes with joy. It just does. You attract what you are. And so my focus isn't how much can I charge for this product or how much can I charge for this service or what do I need to do for this? In fact, I quit something recently because the lens for me was just to educate my lens. And I know Yanko can attest because this is why we do our show together. And I very much think the same for you is I want to share my experiences, my understanding, and the tools and the skills and the wisdom that I've acquired over the journey with other people so that they can hopefully achieve just a monicum of the peace and the joy that I experience every day in my life. And if I do that, then I'm a success hands down every day. And I don't care if you think I'm crazy or not.
Well, and it's very fascinating, Kerri. I'd point out something. There was a question behind the question when they asked you how much money you're making at that. The
Mm,
interesting thing is they're questioning because they have some ideology that a certain amount of money is what indicates success. And I don't believe that the three of us on this screen subscribe to that. I believe it is how much impact have I had. When I leave here, I ain't taking nothing with me, you know. And so,
Exactly.
but what I
Yeah.
believe here is the impact of how you said, how I can educate, how I can impact, how I can help someone better themselves in their lives. It will never be for me about how much money's in my bank account. And if someone else needs that to validate that I'm a success, they're not for me anyway. They're not my people.
yeah.
Yeah.
So is that me? That screeching? No. It's so funny. Every morning I train and I listen to motivational stuff because that's what gets me going. And I loved when I heard Denzel Washington say, you know, you never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. And I'm like, mic drop, because he's right. Because he's very charitable, right? He gives of himself a lot. And I think that's a really profound and important statement is yes, I get it. For anybody out there who's like, what do you mean you don't associate your success with money? I trust me, I worked in corporate America for 25 years and that is still a narrative I still catch myself in. I'm not going to lie. I would say that's probably the most pervasive for me in my own journey to overcome is recognizing when fear creeps in because of money, because it's such a narrative. And yet, I understand unequivocally that if I'm chasing money, I've lost my soul, and that's not something I'm willing to do again.
I agree. And I think, generally speaking, out there in the world of, I heard the statistic this morning that there are 6 million entrepreneurs and 50% of them are profitable. 99% of them will go out of business within a year. And I was like, I had to sit with that a second. And I'm like, man, those are some startling statistics. But I think it also explains, and Kerri, you and I maybe have had this discussion, we have this pervasive culture in the mentoring and coaching world of if I'm not charging you $10,000 a month for my services, that I might not be any good. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I can charge you. I paid 5,000 for the worst coach on the planet. I mean, literally paid like the worst. I like the last conversation I had with him. I was like, could I just ask what you're doing right now? I said, you're breathing really heavy. He's like, oh, I'm on the treadmill. Um, okay. I was like, can you not exercise some other time when I'm paying for your time? It was it was very weird for me. I'm like, I'm done. I'm out. This is stupid. Enjoy the money that I gave you for the 2 or 3 coaching lessons. I'm like, you are so scattered, you can't even focus on what we're talking about, that you've got to keep yourself on a treadmill, like running. I could hear it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is just weird.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
That,
so high ticket offers and these things we get pressured into thinking about with coaching and stuff, it's all a lie. You're not taking that. I don't care if you make $100,000 a month. I don't care if you're Tony Robbins, whatever. And that's what you're charging for your personal coaching clients a month. It doesn't make any difference. Is if you're having impact, then that's what's measurable. That's what matters, and that's what matters to me is impact. You're right about the U-Haul. It doesn't make any. Nobody's coffin is stuffed with cash. I
yep.
mean, like that I've ever seen. Um, and
Yeah.
it's just silliness. Leave an impact. Leave an imprint on the world. Leave your influence and your education.
Yeah, I was gonna say usually because people have to have some kind of way to measure of if there's something going on. Because like, uh, okay, if you're okay with whatever you're doing and you know you're happy with what you're doing, there still has to be some kind of way to measure like if there's any progression or anything going on because like if you're successful in any kind of business you have to have a way to measure it and I'm thinking exactly the same thing if you're doing the service if you're providing a service the money will be the byproduct they'll come in if you're providing a valuable service but if you're not providing any kind of service then yeah I mean, you can sell any kind of things you want, and it's not going to go anywhere.
Well, I tell people all the time, because I'm somebody who doesn't have a funnel. We've talked about this. Like I get clients word of mouth, and through education and stuff. And what I believe to be true is my sole focus is to share what I've gone through and the education. I mean, I've been studying this stuff since I was 14 years old. I'm gonna be 44 in May, right? So, 30 years worth of education, wisdom, and experience. And my goal is to impart that on people, and that is my sole goal. And so that's my focus. But I'm gonna tell you right now, if I'm not having fun doing it, if I'm not peaceful, I'm not gonna do it. Which is why I'm in the car outside of my client's home because they needed me to meet with them, and yet I have fun doing this show, and so I prioritize my needs and make accommodations. But the minute it doesn't become fun, I'm out the door. I'm just out the door because it doesn't serve me. And then if I'm not nurturing myself, I'm not nurturing the people I'm meant to serve.
I have
It's
a
so
friend
fun.
of mine that her favorite saying is, "If it isn't fun, I'm done."
She's
No,
right.
Love it.
yeah, it's so fun that it's actually like something that I I was marinating on, like loving yourself and kind of being okay with like actually doing what you're doing. Because like if you start neglecting yourself from point of like money making or anything else, then it's not going to become fun, and that's why it's not becoming a fun. But it also have an impact on your overall being because like you have to be able to accept yourself, love yourself the way you are. Um,
Yeah,
so
and I would say that, you know what? Do so damn good of a job that somebody wants to give you $100,000 a month, not because you told them they had to.
Yep.
Right?
right,
Like that's my thought on that is I want to be, so impactful to you that you want to pay, whatever it is, whatever price I set. I don't because I think that once that motivation gets screwed up, meaning you fall into the narrative that I have to charge, $5,000 a month for my services. Once you fall into that, you fall away from keeping it client centered or whatever. I don't really like that, and I think that messes with your delivery and your touch point with that client. I think you lose that impact. It tends to wane because your focus becomes about how much money can I make, not how much of a difference can I make. That's just my feeling.
I'm gonna slightly disagree with you there. My focus is on me, and that's gonna sound so selfish, but
No.
I know like unequivocally, especially since I've seen two young women blossom under my own internal healing journey. And so, hands down, before I show up for one person in a day, before I step into life, I have spent a minimum of hours on myself because uh I want to be a light and I want to be loving the world. And if I don't focus on me, then I'm projecting mess. And that's,
yeah,
and I'm to be real, like I have canceled on clients, and I will straight up say I don't have the capacity to be what I have promised you I can deliver. And so we need to cancel. And, much like you said, your people aren't the people who are looking for the money. My clients aren't the people who are looking for me to be on time. My guests aren't the ones who are looking for a perfectly streamed, well put together show, because that's not life. That's not real. And if we hold ourselves to this ridiculous standard of perfection, all of us lose sight of the very fact we're here, which is to have an experience, not a perfectly carved out one, but an experience that hopefully you're enjoying.
Absolutely. And see, I think it's a non-negotiable that you do that self-work that you're talking about. Like it wasn't that I didn't say it to me,
Yeah.
like, don't even show up if you're not going to do that. If you're not going to come to the party ready to have fun, so to speak, and impact, you're right. Just cancel and say, I can't show up as the best version of myself. But for me, I'm also not going to do that. I'm not going to show up halfway for somebody. And you know what? For what somebody is paying you, that should be a given. That's just my personal opinion. You should take care of you. And if you haven't done that, or for some reason you can't, I mean, things happen, you should have that confidence in yourself to say, you know what, I can't give you what you need today,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
be okay with it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, be free of guilt from it.
Yeah. 100%.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of
Nothing.
hard. No, no, I was gonna say I see that it's kind of hard for some people, and sometimes I catch myself doing the same thing because I want to be sometimes I want to be of service. I want to be there for people, but I'm catching myself that I'm not like in the right mindset,
Yeah.
and that in that situation I have to make the decision like, am I going to be able to actually help, or I'm not going to do anything at all. And yeah, 100% agree with what you guys are saying. It's 100% valid. Yeah.
Well, so I think, I don't know. Did that answer your question, Sherry? Because I feel
Mhm.
like that was, I mean, we go all over anyway, but it kind of ties into what's been percolating in my brain this week, and something that I touched upon with my community yesterday, and well again today, is peace. So I'm curious for you guys, when you hear the word peace, because obviously we're all individuals, what does that cultivate, or what visceral feelings do you conjure when you hear that word?
It's interesting for me because when I hear the word peace, I actually I know it's weird, but I envision like flatlining, like the heart going like it's
Yeah,
like
that's a little
Dude.
weird.
even. Not that I'm dead, but like it's an even for me, that it's not some big giant mountain or low valley, that it's actually a level. That's how it feels in the description when you say that to me. That's what peace is.
Mhm.
Just being I don't want to say the word neutral because that makes it sound like I don't have any feelings towards it, but that I'm not in any emotional turmoil or anything. It's just an even, but I will say that my neutral, if you will, in that is joy. Like that is my neutral, like right. So that is my midline, if you will. That's
Yeah,
that's the minimum I need to be in joy. And that's why I was gonna say earlier to what you said is I think I am addicted to joy. I won't, and that's what I said. I do what I want when I want, because I won't do it if it puts me in a space where I'm frustrated or I'm feeling less than or lacking in some way. I'm just not going to do it.
yeah,
Because if I don't feel happy or good, or like you say, in love, it's just not for me. It's not that it's bad. Somebody else can go do whatever it is. It's just not for me. Because I got to have that peace, right? It's that middle, joy line for
yeah.
me.
I love that.
Yeah, for me it's kind of it's similar but not exactly. It's where I'm in balance with everything that's going on. Like I'm in the perfect balance, and I think there's nothing that, like, anything can happen. Like there could be like bombs going off in the front of me, like, and I'm just sitting like, okay, and I'm just like happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like you. I agree. For me, peace is just being serene with whatever it is that's going on. Like, much like showing up 10 minutes late for our show, right? Like, it is what it is. You can't control it. And being able to just be with what is without trying to change it and still enjoying it, right? Like, just being okay. And to your point, Sherri, like being addicted to joy, I freaking love that because, like, without going too spiritual on people, like, if you study the world theologies, right, they all come down to the basis of we're meant to sit in joy, guilt free, just joy. And when you are in joy, I mean, that is the place in which you manifest. If you want to go touch upon that, that's the reality. Is when you're at peace, you're good with whatever, and when you're joyful and peaceful, it's just like your desires kind of show up without you doing anything. But that's a big practice, and you know, peace comes up for me when I'm working with people who are in active addiction because I really try to, before they even quit their addiction, because I'm not big about letting people suffer. Um, I try to get them to be able to cultivate just in a glimmer of peace through breath work, right? Just it could be a half a second of just, and then of course you lose it, and that's why it's called a practice. But I think peace is elusive to most people. True just being is very elusive. So I'm curious, Sherri, first, like, how do you cultivate peace for yourself regularly without, even amidst like life?
Well, one of the things I do also a lot of meditating, and that's actually been something that I've just really started in the past couple years. So, uh, this summer, 9 years ago, next month, I had broken heart syndrome, and it was 100% related to stress.
Mm,
And so I had to navigate that. I did not have a full on heart attack. They asked me, did somebody, really close to you die? And I'm like, no. And the doctor said in the ER, well, this is usually something that happens when people have been married 50 years and a spouse dies and, like, the other person dies of a broken heart. Like, this is the heart cramping essentially and saying, I can't take it. And so I was like, oh, I said, and he said, have you had a very stressful, traumatic event or something? And I asked him if character assassination counted. And he goes, well, yeah. I said, well, then yes, yes, I had a huge thing. I mean, it caused me to leave the town I lived in for 20 years and uproot my entire life, my family, and move and everything. And I just had this conversation this past week. It was like, some people would say, what were you running from that? But I wasn't running from that. I was running to something. And that was that joy that we were talking about. I didn't know that I didn't fully have it until
yeah.
I left where I was.
Yep.
And
Totally.
so that was sort of part of the rediscovering of myself, and I needed that. I really wouldn't like to have gone about it the way that I did. However, one of the things that has become apparent to me, and as you said about how do you keep your peace, one of the things I've realized is that I am not required to have an emotional reaction to anything around me. I do not need to get all up in arms about something. I don't need to watch the news. Did you hear? No, I didn't, and I don't give a you know.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't need to do that. I don't need to do that. I don't need to worry about something that's happening over there. Not that I don't have feelings or I won't pray for somebody that was in strife or whatever. That's not what I mean. But what I mean is I don't have to have some visceral emotional like outburst or feel like, oh my God, what's happening in the world and just like melt. I don't need to do that. I don't
Yep.
need to do that if somebody I love is getting divorced, they are getting divorced. That's not me. I don't need to own anyone else's emotion or emotional reaction. And that was part of that process of coming out of that, is really learning my own strengths, learning to lean on my own spirituality and understand that I am not required to do that. Not even if somebody thinks I'm supposed to act a certain way. I am not required to do it.
That is so profound on so many levels, and I 100% agree with you. And I think, you're a mother, Yanko's a father. I was just talking to a client today about this because she's really stepping into peace. And, I said, you're not even required to have an emotional reaction when your children are going through something. And that is mind blowing, like, to people. They're like, what do you mean you're their mother? You're not. No, I'm not, because
No, yeah.
I'm not going to show up any good to them by being a frantic hot mess with them. I am going to show up as a love and a soft place to land when they need to be embraced. And that's what I do. And so I love that you shared that, Sherri. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Not only that,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I cut
No,
you
go
off.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say not only that, but like I see it with our son. I want to let him figure his own feelings out. Like I
Yep.
don't want to like interject and say, "Oh, don't feel that way. Like you're not supposed to. Like men don't feel that way or whatever." I'm just like, okay, what's going on? He says, "I'm angry," and I say, "Okay, so why are you angry?" You know what I mean? So a lot of the times it's a good thing to kind of like step back and let them explore emotions and other things. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I had to add to it.
Well,
Yeah,
it's,
and I think as parents, you point out something really important, Kerri. As parents, when I talk about stop self-bullying, and that negative narrative that goes on, as parents, which is why I've said my second book on that series, really, I want to do something for parents, because as parents, we get stuck into this position of somebody's doing something to your child, and now what does my response need to be? And they're like, don't hang around them. They're mean. You start getting all up in the on it, but that is not helpful to the child, because
it's,
that's not a tool for them to say, okay, when this happens, I should probably do this. Unless you start asking questions, well, they said, I'm fat, or they said I'm this, or like, how do you feel about that? If
yep.
you're not going to ask questions to them about what their perception is of it, you might say the wrong thing anyway. You might go in because you're using your own narrative to answer what you would do when it might even not even be what they feel about the situation. I always say questions are the answer. I probably say that 50 times a week.
I,
And
it's so
if you
good.
ask the right questions, you'll know.
Yep. Absolutely. It's hands down true. I agree with you. I think back to my early parenting days when I was a reactor, and to your point, like you're reacting from your own perception, like most kids, they're best friends with the person they're fighting with two seconds later. So you're like, oh my god! And I learned that real quickly. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I gotta check myself. So funny. What about you, Yanko? I'm curious. How do you cultivate peace? I mean, I kind of know, but
Oh, how do I cultivate peace? As soon as I get out of balance, I have to remind myself that like everything is perfect, whole and complete just the way it is.
yeah,
And that brings me back into the moment. Instead of like, oh, how should I react in this moment or whatever, I just kind of like remind myself like everything is perfect the way it is, and I know that I'm projecting my feelings and everything or my narrative on whatever it's going on right now. So
yep,
as soon as I step out of that feeling, of course, if I have more options to like go back and sit and just kind of um, marinate on it, yeah. But the first thing that I go to, it's like everything is cold, full, and complete. Like you don't
yeah,
have to react, you don't have to do anything. It just just see it through, see how it is, and
yeah.
that's usually what I do.
I love that. For me, I am so attuned with myself now that the minute I'm out of alignment, I get tightness in my chest, and then the minute I come back to alignment, I burp up pockets of air. And it's not audible, but it's just what is naturally within my body. Like I naturally expend that energy, boom, and I know I'm back in peace, and then I just keep going about my day. And so, but again, that was a practice, and you shared with the audience that you've been meditating for a few years. I mean, I've meditated for like 11 or 12 years now, 11 years. And so, but I remember, oh my God, for the audience out there who's watching this and be like, oh, it must be, I swear to God, people love to say meditation sounds great, but it's not for me. I can't do it. I can't tell you how many times I hear people say that. And I'm like, yes, it is. It really is. It's hard. It's a discipline, just like going to the gym and training your glutes, which I'm doing, and that's really hard because I hate working on my quads. Um, it's not easy, but you just every day give it a little bit of time. Like 30 seconds was all I could stand in the beginning. I mean, I was crawling out of my skin. I was type A personality, control freak, running businesses, had to be in charge, knew everything, and to sit and be quiet was arduous. And so I want to let the people in the community know that none of us cultivated, meditation, easily. I can't imagine. And it is a practice. And if you give yourself grace and just keep coming back to it, even if it's for 30 seconds, it's worth it, because then you do experience life much like Sherri, Yanko, and myself, where if we're not cultivating joy, we walk away.
Yeah.
It's easy for us to say no. And we know our value, we know our worth, we know that we are an repeatable miracle, as Sherri would say.
That's right. And I think, you make a good point too, is, people think there's some way, I think, to do meditation wrong. And I don't know that there's a way to do it wrong. There isn't like some measurement scale to like, oh, if your mind wandered, at 5 minutes in or 30 seconds in, that somehow you've done it wrong. Just notice it. That's the only thing I would say. Notice it and pull yourself back in.
Notice it
Maybe
without
that won't happen until 5 minutes next time.
But it's a without judgment part that
Right.
is critical, because I mean, even for me, I think about, I mean, the years I spent in self-deprivation, like whatever, self-deprivation. I would trash all over myself. Oh, what's wrong with you? You can't do this. But you can't do that, because that does not serve you either. So it's just curiosity is super helpful, and then grace, just being compassionate with yourself. If you can be compassionate with yourself, then you are an example of compassion in the world, and the world is a better place for it, for sure.
I always say, like with my stop self-bullying, I always say, like, when you hear that running through your mind, whatever you're saying, when you're hating on yourself, you got to stop just for a second, grab that statement and think about your kid, your sister, your mom, or whoever, and say it to their face. Like that's the key. If you would say what just went through your mind to the person that you love, then maybe continue to say it. But the fact is, I already know the answer to that is, oh my God, I would never say that. It would be hurtful, hateful. And that's actually one of the key indicators that you should stop your own self bullying.
Yeah.
Because if you would not say it to them, to someone you love, I would say, love yourself enough to stop saying it to yourself.
Well,
Hashtag make good choices.
that is such a beautiful segue with, just a few minutes left of, I really didn't share with the community what it is you do, Sherri, and how you are making an unrepeatable impact in the world. So please share with the audience what it is that you are doing.
Sure. I have a platform called the Wow Warrior platform. Wow stands for Woman of Worth or Warrior of Worth, depending on who you are, what way you swing, whatever way, it doesn't matter. You are a warrior of worth either way. And so what I do is I have an award program that I do during Women's History Month where I salute women, and Kerri is one of my honorees for 2024. Congratulations, Kerri, and an outstanding representative, I must say. And also, I have a magazine and a television show of the same that I interview people and things like that on the show, and I have contributing writers in the magazine. It's just my way of really shining a light on powerful people in the world who are doing good things, who are literally standing up and standing out as that unrepeatable miracle and not afraid to show it. They are not questioning their worth. They know what their value is in the world and they're excited to share it. And, my legacy really is helping people go farther faster, whatever way that is, whether it's through interviewing, whether it's through the magazine, whether it's through the award. I am that proverbial cheerleader. It's what I love to do. It's what I've always done. And it's really what my joy center is, as what you're talking about. If I am helping you succeed, then I am winning. That's why for me it's not about money. If I help you and you get a client or you get a podcast interview or you get something, I am over the moon excited. Like that is my win. That is so good, for me and so fulfilling for me. But you know what? I just want to work with people that, when they walk in a room, the only thing you can do is just go, wow, they are amazing.
So good. I love it so much. Do you have anything you want to add, Yanko?
No, that's kind of like what drives me too. The joy of people's faces when they're, when we're done working. It's wonderful. I'm just admiring the whole thing.
Yeah,
It's yeah.
I love it.
You all are so sweet. And you
Well,
know what?
you're
It's
amazing.
so it's such an honor to share space with people who have such big hearts like you guys do. I'm so honored to be here today, and to share with your audience. Thank
Uh,
you.
Did you guys see that?
You can
If
do that.
you do
You
this,
do.
you get hearts.
Yeah. Let me see if I can do the same thing. Wow. Wow.
That
I'm
was
not
so.
sending hearts, apparently.
No, you gotta. Maybe you gotta curve it better. You gotta really make it into a heart, Yanko. I don't know.
It,
That's
it's
wild.
it's a Mac, iPhone, or Apple. It's an Apple thing.
That is so
Oh, okay.
cool. Okay.
I'm not on
Uh,
my Mac.
Sherri, you are welcome back anytime. I mean, I love this conversation. It was informative for me too to get a perspective from you, and especially about self-bullying and questions behind the question. So I am so deeply honored and privileged that you held space, took time to be with Yanko and I and share with the community. And if you guys are interested in anything Sherri has said, please reach out. She is a lovely conversationalist. So I have no doubt you'll enjoy the conversation. And again, you're welcome back anytime.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate both of you so much. And I love the energy that you're putting out into the world. And I salute the work that both of you are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any
Thank
parting
you.
words, Yanko?
Now I was gonna say this was really enjoyable. Like I really enjoyed the energy you guys hold today. It's wonderful, and I'm excited to have spent this hour with you guys. So that's wonderful, and I thank Sherri for being our guest. And like Kerri said, you're welcome to come back at any time. We're just
Thank
having fun, so it was
Yep.
really enjoyable.
So if we brought you joy, Sherri, you
you.
know you can come back for more joy.
Yes, I will come back for no particular reason.
I love
I will
it.
come back for joy anytime.
That
Exactly.
is
There you
funny.
go.
All right, guys. With that being said, as Yanko said, you can catch us. Oh, he's good with that. 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We're all about education and interaction. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, disagree with us, we want to hear it. We'll talk about it. And until next time, thank you for being with us, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.